I'm Katherine White. I will be your hostess with the mostest today for our political gabfest show we have here with my co-host over there, Jalicia. Looking good. How are you?
Thank you, Katherine. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the Power Lunch, everyone.
Yes, it is good. We have a great theme because today our theme is early, often, and ongoing. Investing in democracy. It's not how I'm cleaning my house for sure, not early, often, and ongoing, but we need to do that for democracy to make sure our house is in order, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm excited. I'm excited for what we have today. You guys stay tuned. We got some good stuff for you guys.
Yeah, I'm excited because we have a good surprise with what you're doing too. So I can't wait for that. Yeah, all righty, let's get to it. First, let's introduce the guests we have. Senator Jennifer McClellan is joining us. Hello, Senator. Why don't you say a few words? How are you?
I am good. Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to unpacking this with you. I call it the 3 Ps we talked about. We're talking about investing the political, the policy, and the practical. And we'll kind of talk all about what you're seeing down there in the Senate. So looking forward to it. And you're looking good. Got the orange on today. You brought it?
Yes, I absolutely did. And you'll see I am in a different space than usual. We're getting ready for session. So I'm in my office instead of the room with the butterflies. So
I know. I think maybe we need to like paint it, have a little painting you could put up there to remind us. I love the butterfly wall. So great to have you here. And always bringing it, doing so much talking about communities is Tram Nguyen, sorry, co-executive director, New Virginia Majority. Hello, Tram.
There. I'm so happy to be with you all again. I think it's been a little while, but always happy to be in space.
Yeah, exactly, because we're really interested in how you're investing, how you look at this subject matter, and especially as we move forward in our work, making sure we're doing a lot of looking up, as Alicia Keys says. So super to see you. And then Delegate Jay Jones, you are the founder of Meet Our Moment. Of course, you are a delegate. How are you, Jay?
I'm well. It's good to see you again, Katherine. Thank you for having us today.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you. You're just in it. Talk about democracy. You're always pushing the limits. So we're excited to hear about what you've put together with Khenia Haro-Perez. Welcome. You're executive director of Meet Our Moment. How are you doing?
Hi, yes, it's very nice to see you, Katherine. Thank you for the introduction. And just super excited to talk about Meet Our Moment and all the things that we have in store.
Yeah, when I did the graphic, I wrote Meet the Moment, and I'm like, hey, meet the moment. Then I was so sorry about that. We changed it up. But as Robin always says, if we don't make one mistake on our graphic, you know, it's not a Friday Power Lunch. So thank you for that, Khenia. All right. Yeah. So as we say, I like to get down to some show business. I want to do one reminder before I introduce the team. We did talk about how we'll be taking a holiday break. Next Friday will be our last show of this year. And we have some great surprises for next week. And we'll be sending the new link. And we make sure that next week we'll really talk about the link more so you don't miss out on a thing. So with that said, let me introduce the team. Ambassador of Buzz, Derek Calhoun, bringing it. And Ambassador, do you have your car packed? Tomorrow we're going to go to the violation vigil.
I've got my car packed and I've got my sign right here ready to go, showing off the violation that I'm opposed to.
Yes, will you do me a favor, put that event in the chat, because we'd love to get more people down outside of Richmond fighting for climate and against the pipeline. And we'll be bringing the refreshments.
Yes, yes. See us there. Hope to see you there.
Yeah, we'll see you down there. All right. And of course, Robin Warner, Postcards for Virginia, show wizard. How's the cats doing?
Cats are doing great. Always love to be here during the show.
Yeah, bring one up later. I always like to see what Monty's doing. And Rosemarie Savino, shortstop. How are you doing, girl?
I think
all good. I'm super excited to hear our speakers today.
I know. I think we have a great audience. We're up to 94 already. So thank you. And then we want to introduce somebody new to our team, Heidi Dragneff. Heidi, going to be our Twitter magic wizard We don't have a name for you yet. So maybe we'll have to, everybody put in the chat, we'll have to come up with a name for Heidi. What do you think?
I'm good with Twitter Guru.
Twitter guru. All right, it's yours. Super. And we're so appreciative. You know, Heidi, you've been with us. We'll talk more a little later, but we're so glad you joined the team and going to be helping us tweet. Right? All right. So getting down to some show business, as I like to say, you know, we have a great YouTube channel. Make sure you like it, watch it, make sure you follow us on Twitter. And also we love our patrons. And look, we have Melissa Hartman here. Thank you. Dorothy, I see with her background. So when you're a patron, you can look around the room and just see people that support us. Sometimes they come with their Zoom background, which is a perk. And just for the cost of a cup of coffee, or $10 or $25 a month, you could support our show. So thank you for that. All righty. And let's bring up Louisa Borowski, leader of our grassroots coalition, always bringing the latest. What are we up to, Louisa?
Well, Katherine, just I think like last week, we are still getting ready for this General Assembly session. We had in the last week 10 meetings with our legislators just from the coalition, and it's been really, really great sitting down with both delegates and senators to talk about what they're looking forward to for this session. We're talking both defense and offense. So we know that there are going to be some big bills that we've passed over the past 2 years that are going to need our ongoing support in case Republicans try to come after them. But at the same time, we don't want to sit back and not try to get work done. So there's some really great bills that our legislators are putting through for consideration, and we want to be behind them. So I'm going to put in the chat a link. If you did not yet sign up for our power mapping, this is one of the big things we're hearing in these meetings. We need to know where our people are who are willing to step up and email or call their legislators during session to say, hey, you know what? There's this really fantastic bill that's going to be in your committee. We'd love for you to support it. Or, oh my gosh, I'm sure you've seen this, but there's this horrible bill that Republicans are trying to push through. We need you to stand strong. We need to, make sure that this does not get passed. So if you are willing to stand up and help us out during legislative session, we're going to try to limit the number of asks for individuals, but there are definitely times where we're going to need support from across the state to be able to push some of this legislation through or protect some of the legislation. So after I'm done, I'll put that in the chat. And if you haven't filled out that power mapping form, we really appreciate you doing so. Additionally, we have a new tool made by Dennis Orsinger for our website, which is going to be our one-click call to action. And it is just going to make getting our calls to action out this year so much more efficient. And so I'm going to put a link in the chat to our first call to action for this year, which is thanking our state senators for their work and asking that they protect our climate and clean energy legislation, because we've already heard from Republicans and multiple locations that they're coming after it in different ways. So we want to, remind our senators that we appreciated their support over the last 2 years for some of this key legislation, and that we want them to stay firm. So I'll put that in the chat. And the last thing is we're going to be going into a lot more depth during our coalition meeting on Sunday, where we're going to hear from our different working groups who are working on specific legislation, and also from our messaging working group, which I mentioned last week. So exciting. Our overall messaging group, which is being led by Fennell Norton, who I think is in the room, has taken off. I'm seeing all of these really fantastic things that they're sharing since their first meeting. So it's exciting. I'm really happy to see it's a lot of activity for a December, I will say. And I am glad that we'll have a little bit of a break before session begins, but really excited to see how much people are stepping up and really wanting to get involved, and continuing all of our work, not just during the electoral cycle, but during the legislative cycle and even in between cycles. We need to stay in contact with our voters and each other. So really, really pleased. And if you want to join any of these, I'll put my email in the chat as well, and I can send you the information. So thanks, Katherine.
Well, I love it. No, I think it's so important, and it's amazing. I mean, we've been doing this for some of us for just 5 years, some people 20, 30 years, but to continue in the work is just so important. And I do agree with you, getting in community is the best way we can stay in it and doing it. And because not everybody can do everything. You get overwhelmed, right? It's like,
exactly. And that's why it's so great to have new people step up and especially,
Empower them.
now and some of our, people who've run for office, getting involved and being involved, throughout the year with us is so exciting. So
what we've learned when there are candidates that run just become just superstars, regardless of the win or the not, they are superstars because they're the most, they're just in touch with the communities. They understand what's going on. And for messaging, Fennell really is a perfect person to lead that. So great to see you. And we will see you Sunday also at the coalition meeting. If you don't know about the coalition, it's time to join. It's another great community. So I'd like to, love it. So let's talk about being a patron one more time, a little, as I say, station break to talk about what it means to support us. First of all, you can look around the room and there's some bennies, as I say, to being a patron. And if I look, I'm going to take a big look of the gallery. I see a lot of people with their Zoom backgrounds. So that's one benefit of being a patron. It's pretty cool. And also we do special events, or starting to try to do some special events with patrons. And also, we always send a little love through the mail. So really, for just a small weekly donation, you can support our work. And I don't want to shield too much, but I also want our friends to put their hands up in the room. We have that are patrons, and I want to say thank you to some new ones that have signed up. Our latest and greatest: Susan Hartford, Michelle McKinney, Patsy Watson, Pat Smiley, Lori Wesley, Ellen Bender, and Trudy Berry. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, you just can't say thank you enough. So I just want to make sure we took a little time. So I am very excited. And I know this room is filled up for a lot of reasons because we just have super great guests here. But Senator McClellan has really become the voice lately of really pushing and helping us push forward after, this latest election, which was difficult. So thank you, Senator, for being here. I'm so grateful that you're here, but you have been everywhere. You have not stopped, by the way. Speaking of defying, breaking the molds, just keeping going, you are just unstoppable.
Well, it's like they say, a rolling stone gathers no moss. So I have slowed down a little bit, believe it or not, progressively since the primary and the special, trying to pace myself before session starts. And I'll let you in on a little secret. I have not scheduled anything between December 2nd and January 2nd. Yeah. So we'll see if that holds, but I figure if I get everything in at the beginning, then I can take a little break before session.
Well, it is important to make that space, because that's actually where you get your best ideas, when you give yourself some time. So when we met, it was last week, to really talk about what this means, like what this topic means, especially after we looked at some of the stuff that did not go right in Virginia. We can talk about that. I actually drove down and went to one of the sessions with the Democratic Party of Virginia to kind of talk about, there was a lot of interesting feedback, from early investments, the support of the candidates. It was about messaging. There was just so many things all over the place. It was a lot like really campaign 101 stuff in some ways, but you had some really great way that I love the way you looked at it, because you really broke it down for us to really look at this moving forward in the political, the policy, and the practical. So let's talk about that. When we're looking about the future and rebuilding, reorganization, we've heard all these words, and then we also know what we do. We have to hold the Senate and all that. Let's unpack that a little bit. Let's talk about first the political look at this.
Yeah, so now is the opportunity for us to learn some lessons, not just about this last election and the campaign, but how we prepare for the next one, because we do have elections every year in Virginia, and sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. So really take this time to strategically plan. Local Democratic committees are reorganizing. So if you haven't go join. We're about to reorganize the Central Committee, have officer elections at the local and state level. So now is the time to start thinking about, we got redistricting maps that have been proposed. Like, are you looking at them? Are you commenting on them? And are you thinking about who are some candidates that can run in some of these new seats? So really now's the time for us to take a good hard look, be honest, self-reflect on what we as individuals and we as a party and all of the structures in between could have done better, and then strategically plan for next year and beyond to do better.
Yeah. I mean, I think when we talked about, especially a lot of people spoke about the infrastructure. Sorry, I got a frog in my voice today. What does that look like for you when you think about some of those investments? When we talk about investing in democracy, what are some of those things that come to mind?
So a few things. I mean, first we got to get back to the basic structure of the party. Our local Democratic committees, our local and district and state caucuses, they were designed to have a grassroots infrastructure and a relational organizing infrastructure in place year round so that candidates didn't have to recreate the wheel. And when we do that, then that becomes sort of the backstop that candidates can build on. So now's the time to start doing that. It's also, that's the party structure, but then there are all of the different grassroots organizations like you guys, who also need to take some time to think about what is our role and what do we want our role to be, and really strategically plan to get ready for the 2022 elections.
Yeah, I mean, because it feels like, if I know, like, we're already moving into the legislature and we can talk about some policy stuff, getting ready for that. That's very important, because this work is all about, in the end, making good policy that helps people, that betters their life. The end goal is all this. So that's where we are now, and we're getting ready. So it feels like we also at the same time have to figure out how we're going to move forward as we restructure things. So wearing many hats. So on your view of that part of it, when we move over to policy, getting prepared, what's your view on what you're looking at for this session?
So you guys already alluded to it, Lisa in particular. First and foremost is defense and protect the progress that we made. We already know on clean energy and addressing climate change, environmental justice, on voting. The Republicans have already said they're coming after our results there. They have not said they're coming after choice and guns, but we expect that they probably will. So first and foremost, those of you who live in Republican districts, make sure your legislators hear from you early and often. And those of you who are in Democratic districts, make sure that you are supporting and amplifying, and in some cases, pushing your representatives to help hold the line. Then there are some opportunities to push forward a little bit, but I think we really need you all to activate the grassroots to be loud and vocal about the policies you want coming out of this session and the ones you want stopped.
Right. Well, exactly. And do you have any insight? So not really, you've looked at all the bills dropped, so everybody can see what everybody is doing.
Well, they're not all dropped yet. So, and that's just to kind of demystify the process. So we have a pre-filing period that we're in right now. Draft request deadline was in November, but we have until the first day of session to pre-file bills. So you'll see there are probably a handful now. Right. The bulk of them will drop in January. And then the budget, the Governor Northam will introduce the outgoing budget on December 16th. That's next week. It'll be online, and then the money committees will have public hearings around the state so that people can comment. And then we'll put in budget amendments, I think by the Friday, the first Friday of session is when those are due. So we're still in the pre-filing phase, right? But more to come.
And how about this money in the sense of like what you guys are talking about, holding the line, talking about building the firewall and all this strategy? Is there also things that you guys are looking at you can do now, or Ralph Northam is doing now? What are some of those things that they're trying to do?
Yeah, so hopefully you all have seen every day this week as he's been on his thank you tour, the governor has hinted some of the proposals. So the latest one just about an hour ago was funding to address gun violence through grants and setting up a gun violence safety center. He's made announcements on public education funding, higher education funding. And so I think where we're really going to push is how do we, you keep hearing we had a surplus. I would argue not really, because we're not fully meeting our needs as a Commonwealth. And so I think you're going to see efforts to make sure we're fully funding K-12, we're fully funding access to mental health services and the like. And you'll see a lot of that in the governor's budget.
Well, yeah, it makes me think about trying to be like we talk about expecting, like trying to be more prepared and play more offense. So, and some ideas about playing offense, like I'm thinking about some of the bills when we talk about, like, for instance, childcare or supporting, education, because we know what's happening. The Republicans' goal maybe is to gut these things, to really push these school vouchers. So it's like trying to get ahead of that messaging. And what apparatus do we have? Sometimes I feel like this is where we don't have we need to work on that apparatus, that messaging, that getting ahead of it and making sure that we're all, like, from the grassroots to the delegates, to the senators, all kind of talking in the same way, not the same way, but to get the message out, to own some of the stuff that we've done so they can't take ownership of it. And to also broadcast what's really important to be a Democrat. So voters hear this. I mean, you know what I mean? So what
I do.
Yeah, what are your plans? I mean, I really think that's something we can really do better. And do you guys, what are you thinking on that level to make sure voters understand what it means to be a Democrat by this policy reflection, for instance?
So you're going to see right around the beginning, right before session, the Senate Democratic Caucus, the House Democratic Caucus, the Legislative Black Caucus, all will issue agendas and have press conferences and press releases. All of them, all the caucuses have email lists. A lot of the members do. You really sign up for those email lists, watch our social media, and help amplify. And we can work on getting you specific talking points around issues, because we do need to. We're not only the back wall in the Senate, but we're also the resistance, and we've got to very vocally push back on Governor Youngkin's and the House Republicans' agenda that we oppose.
Right, and I think this will be the interesting part, and I think we should be prepared for, because a lot of this, what you see with the school boards and local levels, I don't know if this is out of your, reach right now, or how you guys are handling it, how you're supporting it. When you see the local school board issues and some of our elected, obviously, suffering under this death threats, and it's really what we see the long game is just I think it's about education, to defund it, to really in the end, do what they want to do in Virginia with these charter schools, where they're going to, like you said, in the budget, where they're going to get the money for that. Right. So in your view of tackling kind of this year, like, since it probably would be part of this election cycle with Congress being up, do you guys have plans how you're going to address these local school board issues from your point of view down in Richmond?
That's a good question. I think that's something we need to talk about pretty quickly. We are talking about just how to support our local school divisions in general, but we haven't focused yet on sort of helping the local school boards push back. I think because right now, I mean, we really are about to be drinking from a fire hose, just getting ready for what's to come. But look, here's the bottom line: is this is going to be a rapid response time. It is definitely going to be a time where the grassroots needs to organize, and you all with the grassroots coalition, you've got the infrastructure to do this,
Right.
that you be vigilant, and the minute you see something coming out from the caucuses or individual members on Twitter or on emails or press releases, you jump on it and amplify it and push it out. And we will include calls to action,
Right.
but we really are in a drinking from a fire hose period during session.
That's true. And it feels like that's maybe one of these when we talk about the practical, or like practical meaning, what can we do to kind of make sure we have a really, when Luis is talking about messaging, that we have a way to all work together on this. It seems like that's one area where the Republicans have really kind of worked really diligently on, and then are in that space. So I would like to see us figure out how we build that out. And talking to the Democratic Party of Virginia, it's not a big staff down there. So we need to work together and have that sort of, I guess in that way, a better relationship, or to get ahead of this stuff, and to be able to pivot quickly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes, and what I would suggest, and I think the Grassroots Coalition does this, is kind of, pick who your point people are for specific issues and specific committees. And, there are people, I got to give Cindy Cunningham a shout out for who watch the committee hearings and watch the floor and highlight things that need to be highlighted, but she can't do that alone. So if you identify someone and say, you're going to be the education person and you're going to watch these committees, and anytime you see the Republicans do something crazy or the Democrats do something good, you don't have to wait for somebody to tell you to push it out. You can help push it out yourself. But we will also be working through the caucus staffs and our individual member staffs to help push things out and create a rapid response program. Yeah, no, I think that's smart. So I feel like when we're talking about the practical, or really the investments in, it sounds like to me, you're talking about investments in the grassroots is important. We talked about that before. And that's an interesting way to say it, because it feels like that's where we have to get better also, is investing in the work we do, because this is really how we change things from the ground up. And New Virginia Majority is just a great organization that works on this. And is there any other thoughts that come to mind about different things we can do that really is practical? We talked about getting into committees, right? What else did you mention? So I got to shout out redistricting again. The special masters issued maps. I'm sure everyone has already had a peek at them. There will be public hearings next week. Kate from my team is putting information in on how you can participate in the public hearings, how you can provide public comment, how you can look at the maps. Please, it is very important that you provide comment on communities of interest in your area. Right. And then frankly, rest up a little bit over the holidays, because like I said, come January 3rd, it's on. So make sure you're rested and hydrated to rapidly respond and help us get through this session, and at the same time, prepare for the 2022 elections. Yeah, definitely. And we have time if people want to put a few questions in the chat. I have one from Maritza. She says, elected officials should invite district chairs as guests to their events, so district chairs have more access to their progress and gain more support from the committees. So more kind of, that's one idea. I like that. I think we talked about. Great idea. Committees having more of that power. And I see people in the room that are committee leaders. I think there's definitely, okay, so we have one, any chance a special session will be called? But between now and regular session, unfortunately, I don't think so, for a number of reasons. I don't see that happening. Yeah, and that would be before the session to kind of, I think Melissa's trying to say, to protect our progress or something. And then Marjorie says, what are the top issues to watch? Environmental, climate action, environmental justice, they're coming after that. They're coming after voting rights. They're going to be pushing, as you said, education choice. And I think trying to gut education. I think they're going to try to roll back progress on workers' rights. I think those are the big areas I can think of.
Right. And Stephen asks, what are the prospects for passage again of the constitutional amendment automatically to restore the right to vote upon release for prison?
It's going to be tough. I think we've got the votes to get it out in the Senate. I think it was a party line vote in the House, although I'm sure Jay can answer that when Jay Jones when he comes on. But gonna be tough. But you all need to push your representatives, especially those of you who live in Republican areas, to vote for.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's one from Jennifer about, let's see, she asked, does Governor Youngkin have authority to withdraw from RGGI by executive order? And I don't know what RGGI is. Maybe you do.
Reggie, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, thank you.
We're looking at that. As I recall, the way the bill was written, it did not mandate for Virginia to join, but it did mandate that DEQ adopt some regulations. Whether he can do it or not, he's going to need to find some money to put in place to help with coastal resiliency, which I think is a big enough issue, a bipartisan issue, frankly. But we're actually looking at his legal authority right now.
Oh, good. Well, keep looking at that legal authority, as we say. And, I feel like it's important to talk about, because I don't even like to say the word CRT, but the critical race, theory thing, but because, it's repeating this, but we need to talk about it. I think it's important. And because I think when we know on January 15th that Glenn Youngkin said he's going to ban Black history, it sounds like to me, when we're banning CRT. I mean, how do we get ready for this challenge? So by the time he talks about it, he really looks like exactly what it is. It's a racist dog whistle. It's really saying, like they said back in 20 in Virginia, that Black people couldn't legally be taught to read or write, right? How do we make it so it is what it is when people talk about it, and we make sure we have the right reaction to it? And if you were running and this came up to you, what do you, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I think hearing from somebody like yourself about it helps us understand how to talk and react and what's the best way to handle it. So if you don't mind.
I think part of it is, here's where I think we went wrong, is I think rather than just being dismissive and saying, oh, critical race theory is not taught in our schools, nobody knows what it is. So, maybe ask somebody, like, what is it that you don't want taught in schools? Mm-hmm. And respond to that. But then when we see the actual proposals, it'll be pretty clear what they are. So when I think they're going to say, let's roll back the cultural competency training requirements for teachers. Oh, you don't think it's important that a teacher be able to teach someone in a way that doesn't offend them or bully them? So I think that's really the way to respond is don't accept their framing of the conversation. Right. Or you just say, like, look, I think we should teach a full, complete, and honest history of the Commonwealth. And most people will say, oh, yeah, sure. I agree with that.
Well, I agree with you. I think that the thought that everybody ran around saying we didn't teach it, it was like it was bad. Like CRT is bad. And it's like, first of all, like you said, people didn't know what it was, but a lot of us had to go really read more about it. And it's really, to make it seem like, oh, we don't teach that. And it's more like, hey, this is what it is. And it's really important, this theory, because for 30 or 40 years, this is how, academics have studied this, how to look at society and how to look at the law and how this affects people of color. When you look at civil rights, and then it's like, okay, so let's talk about what's really going on, right? But I feel like we have to come out of the gate kind of strong on this. Why? Because I think by not, Democrats like to sort of avoid or try to avoid these hard conversations. And I think when we can go at it and own the conversation, we're better off. Yeah. And I'm hoping that we'll get in front of it. And so by the time it comes up, it will look totally like any other Jim Crow racist thing that's been done. And I think that that's our job. And I'll let you have the last word on that.
Well, I think we are seeing a backlash that is inevitable and cyclical in history, that whenever we make progress, to help and advance Black people in general and marginalized people in general, there's always a backlash. And so first we got to recognize the backlash, and then we got to keep pushing for progress anyway. And I'm going to end with just a thank you, because many of you got engaged and started in this fight in response to Donald Trump. And I know it's been an exhausting 4 years, but many of you have stayed and continued the work because you understand the call that John Lewis had, that democracy is not a state. It's an action that requires every generation to do its part. So you're doing your part. Thank you for that. And let's just pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and keep pushing forward.
Yep, I'm all about that. So thank you, Senator. It's great to see you. We look forward to continuing to work with you, especially on a lot of those wonderful policies you've just been really advocating for years, the child care, the family paid leave, and you know, and then hold that firewall down there. Keep those people in order down there, as we say.
I will. Thank you all, and you all have happy holidays and a happy new year.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, and thank you, Kate. She's always great. It's the executive LA that you. Thank you, Kate. She's in the room somewhere. All right, so yeah, woo. Let's bring up Heidi. Thank you, Senator. Let's get to it. Heidi. We are talking now about Twitter. Why is Twitter so important?
Twitter is the main way that a lot of people communicate, especially when we're talking about politics. A lot of younger people use Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and they have moved away from Facebook. So Twitter is important because it gets the information out fast, and you usually find things out first there before they even come out in the news.
Yeah, and I love it. So we've been with you now, I think, gosh, I've known you maybe about a year, and we were in the Demcast room together, as we say, Twitter room, and now you're taking the lead there. So if anybody again wants to join you on that work, contact Heidi. But Heidi now is going to be part of our team and really help us old people with social media and we're going to do a TikTok. We got TikTok. We're going to be on TikTok.
Yeah, we're going to try it out, and hopefully we can get in with the trends, you know, us old people. I'm not as young as you think I am. It's the filters.
Is it? Oh, good. I love it. Yes, I'm 17 and no one knows that.
All right. With 18 years experience.
So we're doing you're going to put a DM or, so explain to people what you want them to do today. And then we will see if we can make it happen.
I did earlier put in the chat a link to the initial tweet for the thread as I tweet along live, and I'll put it in again. And I can also put in the links to join Demcast if you're interested in helping push out the social media messaging.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you. Well, let's transition over. Tram, we have our next segment coming up. Co-director of New Virginia Majority, my friend, it's great to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a Friday, even though I'm working all weekend, but it's a Friday. So at the end of the week, it
is good. Yeah. So when you're listening in the room and you're thinking about this last statewide election and all the work the hard work you guys have been doing, your work seems like modeling with Stacey Abrams and really understanding what it's like to do early on ongoing investment. Talk to us about what New Virginia Majority is doing now, but also give us a view of, I'm interested in the election, some of your takeaways that you learned, what you saw of all these, of the results of that election. Did you see a reflection of the work that you've done? I mean, did you see some progress there? I'm interested in some of your takeaways.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, the election seems like a lifetime ago. So I've had a good minute to reflect and to think back. And I'll just start by saying that, we don't view elections as our finish line. And so when you don't view elections as your finish line, your definition of winning and losing actually changes, right? We didn't lose necessarily, because what we're doing is we're building a movement that provides on-ramps for people throughout the year. So whether they come, and start getting engaged and activated because they're motivated by an election, or because they're motivated by, a generational issue that has impacted their families and their communities for a long time, there's no finish line, right? We're always progressing and moving forward towards progress. And I think that orientation helps us sort of continue to stay motivated and grounded in the work, because even if we say the results in November were different, our work would look a little different, but we would still have a lot of work to do, right? Because the work around this generational change, the systems change, this equity work, right, is just ongoing.
No, I love the way you put it, that building the movement and the finish line. And I think that's a good way to put it, because I think when we do concentrate, for like my side of things, I'm always like, we got to win. And then it's like, when that doesn't happen, then you're like, well, it could throw you off and maybe you feel like deflated. But in your work, this doesn't matter. I love how you said that it is ongoing. So in this past election, going back to that again, in the communities you've been working in, did you see a good turnout, or was there any challenges that you just that were maybe still left over from COVID, or what were some of those takeaways? I don't know if you've unpacked that quite yet.
I think we're winning. First of all, I think I'll just say, like, we are winning. And if we weren't winning, then we would not be having this conversation right now. And in fact, for us, so the communities we engage in are folks that have been typically underrepresented, marginalized, who don't even factor into elections. Like, let's be real. When we started doing this work 10, 12 years ago, people were not trying to turn out folks that just had their rights restored, or folks in immigrant communities. We were not a factor in the equation. And so when we think about that, right, and take that lens on, the fact that all of the campaigns and both parties actually try to reach out in language to immigrant communities tells me that we have power that we didn't have 10 years ago. So that is winning, right? And that means then that the issues that impact the communities that we work with are actually important, and that our voices matter. And we may disagree with some of the candidates that won in terms of what the policy solutions and the outcomes ought to be. But the fact that they paid a little bit of attention to us says that, okay, we're going to factor in, right? And so I think that's power. We still need a lot more power, but the work has been about building power. I looked at some of the precinct level results. I mean, we have to obviously wait until the voter file comes back to do real analysis. But if you look at some of the precincts where there are higher concentrations of communities of color and voters of color, typically in this type of off-year election, we see significant drop-off, which means that, overwhelmingly the electorate tends to be older, white, et cetera. And that didn't happen at the same scale and rate as we've seen in previous off-year elections. So I think our work is still making an impact, and it still matters. And people are certainly very much engaged in the political process. So that's winning, right? That's
winning. I love that. I love it. And I'm also thinking, you just made me think when you're talking about that it felt like Republicans were really looking at different communities and directly contacting in so many different ways that we really didn't do. And it's hard to say that we were kind of beat in our sweet spot, which is supposed to be relational organizing, supposed to be this kind of outreach. And it showed me that we just need to go and understand the critical, like, year-round talking to voters, not just, like you said, just about elections. It's really building this thing out. And let me just ask you a question practically. How do you guys do that? Like, what is your method? Is this a secret? I don't know if it's
I think it actually goes to the title of this power lunge, right? The early, the often, and the ongoing. We don't view our engagement with our communities as transactional. And I think, like, we'll see post-election if any of the outreach from any of the campaigns actually sticks, if they're doing ongoing engagement. But for us, it's ongoing, it's year-round. It's not transactional. It's about building authentic relationships and spaces where people can be seen and heard and feel like they have a political home, right? Where their voices matter. Fundamentally, we believe that the people closest to the problems are the folks that should be closest to the solutions. And so when we provide those spaces, then they actually are engaged, throughout the year and every year.
Right. Because I do think if you're not talking to them, there's so much, this is where misinformation could get in there. When you're contacting, I saw some of the outreach to immigrant communities that really got them nervous about the education issue, for instance. We saw that was able to lean, if they were going to go vote for maybe a Republican, because they were told, mysterious things about what Democrats really wanted to do to their children in school. So if we're not like having these ongoing relationships, trusted relationships, then we kind of lose in the fact kind of area,
It's hard for folks to sift through the noise, and how you often are able to sort of just distinguish between what's real and what's not is you have trusted messengers, right? You have people that you actually trust. And so when you're able to have a relationship, right, and be a trusted voice, then they're like, okay, what I'm hearing over here actually is probably not true. I mean, think about your own sort of personal networks, right? You're more apt to believe your friend than you are some random social media source that's, out there. But I do think you are hitting on something that's important that we need to think about, big picture, is how do we break through this noise and sort of the disinformation infrastructure that exists, because they are really feeding a lot of information and a lot of different channels to the communities that we're going to have to really try to unpack for people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because if you do, I think this is where we can really use this time now to think about that and do it quickly. Just telling people what we are trying to do. Well, for the policy part, we were talking with the senator, really trying to help people's lives be better by here's these things. And once, they can make these things better, or your life better, or from wages to healthcare access, maternal care access, child care access. And like you said, really speaking to the people to ask them, the stakeholder, like what matters to you, and having those conversations. I think it's just so important. I was a little frustrated when I knocked doors. I felt like we did we missed the mark in some of our areas. I went to canvas and I didn't have materials in a different language. And I was surprised, and I went to ask and they didn't have it. And I'm like, I'm going to doors and I can't talk. I'm just over here in Falls Church, but I'm like, I really needed different materials, right? Little things like that. This is 101, right?
Yeah, no, that stuff matters, because it's the message, it's the messenger, and delivering it in such a way that people can really absorb and understand it. And yes, back to basics, right? Sometimes it means doing it in language. I remember reading an article after the election where Youngkin's folks said they translated materials in 14 languages. And I'm sitting here like, holy cow, 14 languages, right? And it's a little thing, but it did show that community that they took the time to communicate in a way that they could understand.
Yeah, no, I think it's almost like returning to the basics and reminding us. And like you said, it is, I like the way you framed it up about winning and really what that looks like for the movement. So I appreciate that. So we are getting up on the hour, but do you have any last takeaways? You're here, people love to hear from you. Let me just ask you about this upcoming year. What's some stuff that you're going to be working on?
Oh my gosh, I will just echo everything that Senator McClellan said in terms of we got to protect our progress, priority number one, and then still try to push proactive things. Listen, we have been here before. And it wasn't, let's remember, right, that even as recently as 2013, which was not that long ago, Republicans had the trifecta. We have been here before, and actually we've won some really amazing things. And so I think it's protecting that progress and letting folks know about that progress, and then continuing to try to be proactive, because a lot of our best and most significant policy victories, Medicaid expansion, y'all were there for that. Remember, that was a multi-year fight. And so it doesn't mean just because we're playing defense that we're not also trying to move the ball forward. And I think we can make progress. I know there was a conversation about the Rights Restoration Amendment. That is something that our folks have been working on since 2008. And so we are ready to get this thing across the finish line. We did have 2 House Republicans vote for it this past session. We need to hold those 2 votes. So that's Coiner and Ware. So if folks have any capacity or relationships in those 2 districts, let's encourage those 2 to continue to support the amendment. And we just need 1 more. So we'll continue to plan and strategize and keep you all updated on who we need to be talking to.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you again for being here. I love your optimism. I think that kind of puts us in our place, as we say. And have a great holiday, and we'll definitely see you back in the room soon. So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, all right. And I'm going to hand it over to our MC, Jalicia.
Thank you, Katherine. And I'm really excited to announce a new organization called Meet Our Moment. Meet Our Moment recruits and trains minority Democratic candidates to run for state and local office here in Virginia. And this organization was founded by Delegate Jay Jones and Executive Director Khenia Haro-Perez, who are both here with us today to discuss what MOM is all about. So welcome both of you to the Friday Power Lunch. Super excited to have you. I know you both have your first training cohort coming up tomorrow in Richmond. And I know this because I actually am one of the minority candidates that have been selected, and I cannot wait to attend. So Delegate Jay Jones, let's just start with you. Just share with us exactly what is Meet Our Moment and how are you addressing the unique needs and issues of minority candidates?
Well, thank you all for having me, and it's good to see you all again. Virtually. I know you guys do this every week and you hear from a lot of different people, but it does warm my heart to see you guys and see your commitment and your passion. And I think what we're about to talk about really does align nicely with the mission and purpose of this group as well. Meet Our Moment, and we call it MOM internally for short. It really sort of sprung up this summer after the primary because I frankly didn't know what to do with myself and was really sort of passionate about finding ways to build our bench here in Virginia. I think for many years, a lot of folks have talked about grooming the next generation and building our ranks at the local and state level, whether that's school board, boards of supervisors, city council, House of Delegates, state senate. But I didn't see anything in this landscape that was really targeting women and minority candidates because it's a different experience. And I think Senator McClellan would agree with you as you run as a person of color, as a Black person, as a woman, you're held to a little bit of a different standard. And for far too long, there have been some barriers to entry for a lot of us. I was fortunate, Senator McClellan was fortunate. We have been involved in things throughout our lives that sort of made us, I think, really sort of wonderful people to do it. But there are plenty of folks out there who I think would be great public servants. They just don't know how to start or what to do or how to really go about that process. And so what this program will do is it's basically a sort of candidate training boot camp. And we're going to give you a full day tomorrow. And it's really comprehensive. It's like, sort of campaign 101, then it's fundraising, then it's mail, and then it's, community outreach and field. And then you get a panel of legislators at the end of the day, really giving you the whole sort of soup to nuts process about, do you want to become a candidate? If you get to yes, how do you do that? And then if you're going to do that, how do you do it well?
Well, I absolutely love it. And I thank you for providing this resource because I ran this year in the Democrat primary without a campaign manager. So that goes to show you that you want to get involved. You're very passionate about the community, but I didn't know where to start or I didn't have any resources as a minority and as a woman to turn to here in Virginia that could actually help me fulfill the dreams and the work that I wanted to do and continue doing for my community. So I'm really excited about what you're introducing because I can tell you from experience that it is well needed. Okay. So listen, Khenia, thank you for joining us. Feel free to share with us, how do you go about recruiting candidates and how can someone register for something so significant as Meet Our Moment?
Yeah, so I apologize in advance if I keep muting myself. I'm fighting a nasty cold.
Oh, you're fine. You sound amazing.
But yes, again, my name is Khenia Haro-Perez. I serve as Executive Director of Meet Our Moment. and really we have streamlined this process to be quite simple. We have a website. I will put in all the links as soon as I'm done chatting here, but you can just go on to meetourmoment.com, and right at the top, you'll see a ribbon essentially that makes it easy to kind of click through and submit an application. It's a very simple application. And we don't really make any barriers at all to people applying. We really just have the baseline of being a woman, a person of color.
You gotta be a Democrat.
Correct. But yes, a Democrat seeking Democratic office. And so we don't, that was like the whole point essentially of us making it as easy as possible, because we wanted to make it as accessible as possible to folks. We didn't want to have some crazy application process where we weed people out and we gatekeep essentially. That's not what we're trying to do. We want to open the doors to everybody. And that's why we're holding so many sessions across the Commonwealth, because we wanted to be able to reach people wherever they are. So we encourage people to just go to our website and sign up on our mailing list. And then that way you can be privy to when we release the new dates for the applications. The next one will be in the spring. And so by signing up to the mailing list, you'll be alerted to when that will happen. And the website will also give you a wealth of knowledge on how to connect on our Twitter, how to connect on our Facebook, which also provides daily updates on kind of what we're doing and some new things. And I will also place those links in the chat as soon as I'm done chatting here.
And it's really cool, and this is really important to us, is that it's free. It costs participants nothing to join. All you have to do is get to the particular place, and this time we're doing it in Richmond. So you show up, we do professional headshots for the trainees. You get your day full of information. There's a happy hour at the end of the day, and if you're coming from out of town, we put you up in a hotel because so many people I think would be great public servants. They just don't necessarily have the means or the wherewithal to do that. We wanted to keep it to be one day. We wanted to keep it short. Tomorrow's going to be great. We're already into planning our spring session in April, which is most likely going to be in Charlottesville. We're going to do these all over the state because we really want to go into these communities and talk to people and understand what's going on. And as part of the application process, people share what they're really interested in. Some people are interested in fundraising. Other people are interested in field, because there are so many elements to a campaign that have to come together for it to be successful. And I did see someone ask in the chat whether we interface with the Democratic committees. The answer is of course. We have provided all of this information to every committee head that we have on record in the state. And this is something that I think will really benefit us over the next 4 years, especially as we try to win back the majority in the House of Delegates and keep that majority in the Senate and really grow our ranks. And we want people who have experience. We want people who have the passion and energy. And I think this is one way for us to channel that and get people engaged and keep them engaged because, look, it was great to be in the majority for 2 years. I'm very disappointed about what happened on election day. And I'm going to do all that I can in any capacity to make sure that we go back to where we were, because it was a much more wonderful experience having 55 than it will be having 48.
Absolutely. And, we'll allow Election Day to keep us motivated. And that's what really Meet Our Moments is about. It's about, rechanneling and moving forward and staying motivated and staying in the game. So I'm really excited about this training. And look, we have a minute left. So outside of the training, do you want to share with us real quick what your legislative agenda is going to look like, Delegate Jones?
Yeah, so look, I will take one quick second to also say that this is an organization that's committed to diversity. And so not only are the candidates themselves diverse people, right, women, people of color, the people who are presenting, every person who's presenting is a woman, a person of color, or someone who has worked in a senior position on a campaign for a woman or person of color too. So they understand how to talk to us and how to sort of navigate these challenges and these pitfalls. That was really important to us. As we look ahead, I think there's a whole host of things that we would like to do, recognizing and understanding the sort of changing dynamics in this state from a General Assembly standpoint. We have some justice stuff that we really need to work on. Paid family leave has always been something that's important to me. And that's something that I will continue to push for and really holding these folks accountable, because they talked about education and taxes during the campaign cycle. I hope that that's where they're going to stay, because if they try to go somewhere with whether it's abortion or guns or other issues that are near and dear to us that they didn't run on, that's when it's time for us to really hold their feet to the fire. And that's what's going to allow us to win back these seats that we lost over the course of the last year, because they are not doing what they talked about and they're not holding their promises to the people of Virginia. We did it. And I think we were very proud of the things that we did over the course of not just the last 2 years, but the last 4 years. I want to give Governor Northam an incredible amount of credit for his leadership and his guidance and his stewardship, and then the work that we legislators were able to do. It was special, and it's not going to get rolled back so easily. We will be there fighting tooth and nail because we've got a lot of work to do. And I'm so glad that you guys are still doing this and you're still remaining engaged, because this is how we continue to build back and win back those seats, and so that we can create the Virginia that we all want and that we all deserve.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, thank you both for joining us. And the links got dropped in, so you guys should be able to sign up. If you have candidates that you know, like myself, that would be phenomenal for this training. Make sure you go on the website. And I am passing this back to you, Katherine, because I know we are pushing time.
Well, you can stay with me. Oh, there you go. You popped away like magic. Well, Khenia and Jay, woo! I love it. I love what you talked about. And Jay, what stuck with me is when you said, we did it. And I think we really have to own what we did. And when I say we, I mean the Democratic Party with your leadership down there, and just, we did it. And I think we need a billboard all over Virginia. Dems did it. We did it. And because we did. And Governor Northam's, his investments in education, broadband, all those things, trust me, later January, the Republicans will say they've done all that. So we need to own that space now. So thank you for your leadership down there, and let's do it. Let's keep it going. So thank you again to our guests, Senator Jennifer McClellan. Let's give her a hand. Woohoo! All right. Also, Delegate Jay Jones, always fighting down there with Khenia Haro-Perez. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. I think Jaleesa is going to be there, and you have this event kicking off at 5. Is it the reception?
Yes. So the reception is at Maya. I can drop the address.
Yes, drop it in there.
It's at Maya. It's a Mexican restaurant in downtown Richmond. And we will be starting at 5. It's largely informal. It's not mandatory, but there will be a distinguished group of individuals there, a lot of delegates, and some other folks from across the Commonwealth. So we welcome you to join. Anyone is welcome. And yeah.
Because a lot of people are going to be in Richmond because of the pipeline, the vigil down there for keeping the pipeline, shutting that down. So maybe we'll get to see you. I think Stair's planning on it. So yes, so thank you. And also I have to say, thank you, Tram Nguyen. Thank you always for your work. New Virginia Majority is just so awesome. And thank you to everybody in here today, showing up, staying in community, because we got to, as I say, keep the joy so we can do our work. And Senator McClellan told us to take some rest. And I think that's really smart. Hi, Robin.
Hi, I want to announce that we got 3 new patrons during the show. Our own Jennifer Kitchen, Bob Haley, and Josh Stanfield, who was on the show last week. So I want to make sure we do a shout out to them.
Thank you. I love that you popped in. It's like magic. So I love it. I love the love. That's a great way to wrap the show up. Make sure that Heidi's going to be looking at doing our Twitter for us. So follow us on Twitter on the Power Lunch, and we will be putting these nuggets out there. So please amplify them. And our YouTube, we have great content on there. And remember that we're going on holiday break after next week. We'll be back for 1 more week. We still have a show planned for December 17th, and we'll be back January 7th to kick off some badass programming for you. And of course, stay for the after chat. All right, everybody. Happy Friday. Go have a great weekend. I hope you have plans tonight and all weekend. All right, let's do it.